51
Do you want
again.
again?
Still here.
Still here. Our previous attempts of recording 51 failed due to the technical malfunctions.
Technical difficulties.
So, which the way I guess interpret it is, it means that conversation, or really it was kind of me ranting, was not meant to be. Anytime I have an intense rant, it seems like that podcast just disappears.
Kind of
Like,
goes off the rails a little bit.
yeah, I tend to go off the rails a lot.
What's the point of rails? What do they ever help?
I guess, with me, like, I have had always very hard time staying on the norms of the rails of humanity. Like, I don't understand their point.
Yeah, normal is,
It's just a definition
yeah,
to
it's
fit in.
just the average.
Oh, it's just a definition to fit in based on the pain body. Right. Well, here you go. Less than 2 minutes in, and I'm already saying the pain body.
Take a shot.
But yeah, right. So like the norm never made sense. It still doesn't make sense. I mean, the norm is disappearing.
Yeah, I guess I felt off from the norm as well, especially growing up. I feel off from, I say especially growing up, maybe my whole life I still feel it. But, now I have zero desire to be in the norm. There's not, I don't know, the social pull has lost its effect on me for the most part. When I'm, 8, now it feels very important to be normal.
Yeah, but is that because it's ingrained from your parents?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it definitely was ingrained from the parents. I think it's like, an evolutionary trait too, because, if you're not part of the tribe, you're kicked out of the tribe and then you die. I think there's some, instinctual part to, people want to fit in because that feels safe. In the modern world, is it unsafe? No, not really. Or at least not like it used to be when, if you're exiled from the tribe, good luck out there with the lions and the tigers and the bears. Oh my. But yeah.
Yeah, we reference the tribe a lot.
Yeah. And the tribe is just, whatever group of people you happen to think you need to belong to. And there's all these different overlapping tribes, right? There's, there's your neighborhood, there's your classmates, there's your little group of friends, there's like, oh, well, there's one class, all these tribes. And just like, the funny thing is, it's like, because of the inter-tribe conflict, it's like, you can't be in all of them. You can't be in with the jocks and in with the nerds. I don't know if that's still a thing, but like, those are almost like opposites. And so if you're in with one, you're by definition out with the other. So it's like, you almost have to pick and choose which tribes you want, and then you try to get in with them by being whatever their version of normal is, and maybe there's the, I don't know what word, non-normal. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Tribes. I was in with all the computer nerds. They were not, we were not, quote, normal. We were nerdy and didn't do anything physical at all. And introverted and reclusive, and I was much happier alone in a room with a computer than I was out and about, which isn't normal. If normal being average or common, or, normal being like a statistical function, not normal being, what, there's no moral judgment in the word normal. That's just, what most people do. That doesn't mean it's good, bad, right, wrong.
Yeah, but I guess where I want to take it back is the inception of idea of a tribe and what it means to belong in the tribe, and then conform to the beliefs or actions of the tribe, and then you have to stay there in order to belong, because otherwise you're exiled, let's say, right?
Mhm.
But the entire idea behind belonging, by default within itself, subconsciously carries an intention of um, elimination of your sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, it does, especially if your wants and desires and beliefs are contradictory to what the tribes are. Right? It's all fine and good if you happen to want the same thing the tribe wants. That makes it easy.
No, but
But
at some point, you would almost forfeit your own identity, regardless whether or not it will fit in with the tribe or not, because you would not dare question, oh, wait, if I do this, does it fit, does it not? The idea of just doing that disappears. And then you
yeah,
only do what the tribe does.
right. I mean, if
So your own independent action of self by default, you're almost not even evaluating, wait, does this fit or does this not fit? You would just not do anything that you have not seen somebody else in a tribe do. Therefore, the narrowing of what the tribe actually is, of what it identifies as, what it does, just narrows more and more and more and more,
yeah,
because there's never anything new introduced into the tribe.
yeah, it taken that way, it can get less and less diverse. What you've just described is like the tribe being, you know, modern civilization, and those are codified as the laws. It's like, well, you don't kill, and you don't steal, and you don't rape, and you don't do all these things that are listed as laws. No, bank fraud, you don't do that. There's a lot of them, and we all just kind of agree not to do that. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't. We all just kind of agree not to do that. And if you do, well, you're kicked out of the tribe. We have a special place for that called prison. Now, what happens when it's not, murdering and stealing and raping, but, the tribe is the church, and you don't necessarily believe that what they're doing is right. There's no, well, I guess they have their codified laws for it, but it's not, you're not going to jail.
Oh
You're
yeah,
going to hell
you're going to
instead.
hell, which is worse, right? Is
Yeah, imagine.
hell worse than jail? I don't know.
It's like a jail for eternity, and it's on fire.
Yeah. No, I mean, that might be the topic then.
That sounds like that's the topic.
I don't know how, let me position this the way it's coming through. The way for us to find ourselves, to come into fruition of our own independent being, I'm not saying with the goal of separation. That is not what I'm saying. In fact, with the goal of joining the whole, the trueness of the whole, is to find our own individuality in our own circumstance of self, right? And then be able to identify us, right? To once you see you for you, once you actually acknowledge with full extent of awareness what it means to be you, right? Then you can actually connect to the greater whole of the oneness, right? If this is enlightenment or spiritual awakening or uh, what's the biblical term for it?
Salvation.
Salvation, or the term that William Henry uses a lot, gnosis, right? The idea of gnosis, right? Which is knowing. Gnosis is knowing, right? So the idea of this transformation into the essence of you, and then thus the transformation of the world into that essence, not by force, but by just engagement with the truth, it can only come when you identify yourself as an individual and become aware of yourself, right? And the book that I'm reading right now that is spiking a lot of memory comes in and talks about the balance between the light and the dark, or the negative and the positive, right? And so the whole extent of humanity is supposed to identify that balance within themselves, right? But if we bring in the norm into this definition, as a society, we have designed every aspect of our nature of existence to take us further and further away from us discovering our own being. Because at all times, subconsciously, if you believe it, right? If you came into this world and you kind of believe that you need to belong to a tribe, each time you enter into an engagement with a different tribe, you believe that you need to shut yourself off subconsciously, right? You don't consciously do this, but through that feeling of the need to belong, you come in and you shut something off from your own being.
Yeah.
And so for you to discover your own self becomes more and more impossible the more decades you spent living in the runaway from the acknowledging of what is the truth of you.
Yeah.
And so society, from its core, and this was what I'm trying to point out, from the engagement of the humanity, from the aspect of the tribal caveman days, we reference everything like, oh, well, we do this because back in the cave days, this was normal, right? And we go, okay, yeah, but, you say, oh, but, we don't have saber-toothed tigers and lions chasing us or whatever. But that idea of engagement, of belonging, not out of the heart space of like, here's who I am and here's what I bring to the table out of my own sovereignty, is like, no, let me just be unseen and come in here and offer the same thing that your tribe already knows in order just to fit in.
Yeah.
And not stir the pot. Because the second I bring in and I have an opinion, this tribe will disown me.
And there's countless movies. I mean, that's basically the plot of the movie, is that someone is different, special, even usually.
Example. I'm not drawing any.
I
guess I'm approaching this from like a celestial standpoint right now, so I'm having a hard time anchoring this into Earth.
Okay.
So everything I'm saying is kind of like up here, and I'm not able to connect in.
Maybe I'm going from the opposite direction.
No, that's what I need, because I can't actually connect this in.
I don't know. I might I'll try to come up with an example. But
no, the second you question or present an idea outside of the norm, like if the cavemen are stuck in the cave and during the day when it's light, the men go outside and the women, I don't know what the heck women do in the caves.
Right? What do they do? What does cave women do all day?
I mean, I guess nothing.
Right? Go around and gossip. That's all I can think of what they do.
But see, there's
cooking, cleaning,
there's
gossip.
There's that idea, right? That the women do nothing, and then all they do
the men go work
is gossip between each other.
I can't even say it with a straight face.
And then that's normal. That behavior is normal, right?
And if you don't do that,
you don't belong.
You're weird and you don't belong.
Yeah. And I mean, there you go. I can relate to that. I can relate to this from the human standpoint.
Yeah.
To me, the idea of gossiping, now I'm not saying I'm not guilty of bullshitting, but the idea of gossiping about someone else and like judging them from like somebody I know, it would engage in. Maybe you should have beeped that up. Yeah, beep that up. Right. I grew up in a household where this was the norm, right? No, I'm just, you don't have to beep it out. It's obvious. But no, so my mom and my grandma would engage into like, oh, did you know, blah.
My parents as well.
And blah, blah,
yeah.
and blah, blah. And, like, there you go. It's like a train wreck, right? It's like a train wreck. And I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of energy and anger, but like anger out of what, right? But I realized later in my life, it's anger out of comparison.
Jealousy?
So if it's a good thing, then it's jealousy. If it's a bad thing related to us, like they're jealous to us, and then it's like protection.
Mm.
So it's all a survival thing.
What if it's a bad thing to them? Then they deserved it, maybe? Or
fear that it might happen to you.
Okay.
Right. So everything, the gossip, right? What I realized was the personal pain body's way of expressing itself into the outward world, and acknowledging your own fear and acknowledging your own stuck energy. But instead of going, oh, I somehow can relate to this and this is bothering me in this particular flavor of the way, instead of acknowledging that awareness, you went about it in a roundabout way. But the energy was still flowing. So I'm not justifying gossip here, but the energy was fruitful in the sense that you allowed it to flow. You did not have it trapped in. To some extent, I will say this, women live longer because they allow themselves to express all kinds of ranges of emotions. And through gossip, I'm not promoting gossip, but through gossip, inadvertently, what they don't realize that they're doing is they're actually expressing the deep down density of their fear and scarcity. It's something that would be buried inside.
Mhm.
And it comes out, not in the most constructive way, not as acknowledgement, but it does come out. And there's a benefit to that, to its coming out of your system and being expressed forward. It is misguided and mischanneled. It is only a fraction of the percent that it could be, but it does allow energy to flow, right? They're not shut off from the feeling and then the idea. And, men, for the most part, I'm generalizing right here, don't gossip, as much.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, that's the stereotype for women, but the stereotype for men is, they get around and they complain about their wives.
But
Or
again, that's
is
also, I mean, I say
which is
good, but it's bad and good. You're allowing the energy to flow,
Mhm.
but not in the most constructive way. And how it would be better with man and just a woman if there was an awareness of like, oh, look, here's a trigger for me. Instead of going, oh, look, here's what Billy Bob did with June, yeah, I don't know. Then you would, instead of judging Billy Bob and June, you would go, oh, if Billy Bob and June did this and this and that, and here's what that trigger is within me. And that is a constructive mechanism to allow the density of you to come up. Right?
Yeah.
I So yeah, this may be going into the norms of like what our belief in stereotypes is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. So wait, did you have something else to say?
I'm probably going to take it in a slightly different direction, so go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to the original inception, that idea of the norm, the idea of the cave tribe and not stepping outside of it, from the core, from our belief, it inceptified the origin of belonging, and then thus giving up or forfeiting individuality, right? And then this continued into variation of the cave tribe, right?
Say that in a different way.
We think, oh, look, we need to belong to a tribe, right? And we justify like, oh, well, this is just a natural instinct for us to belong somewhere in order to feel safe. And initially it came off of safety, but now it's just continued into 2024's interpretation of quilting clubs and golf clubs and racket clubs.
In the same way that
whatever.
our, what is it, the nervous system's like response to something's wrong, of squirting out cortisol and adrenaline, was useful back in the day for running away from saber-toothed tigers. Not as, now it's almost more in most people in the modern world, normal day, it is more of a detriment than it is useful.
I'm not saying belonging to a tribe is a detriment.
No, that's not where I'm going. I'm saying that it's just like there are a handful of things that we've just kind of inherited from the last 1,000 generations of people going back to cavemen
through their fear. Yes,
yeah.
through the aspect of fear.
I mean,
yes,
that's through fear.
We inherited the fear of needing to belong.
Needing to belong. Yes,
yeah. Yes,
it's all kind of this weird evolutionary thing that may have helped caveman survive, but it is not necessarily as useful today.
Yeah, but we believe that it helped caveman survive.
Right. That's
what I'm saying. The origin of that story, the origin of justification that this is how humanity functions, within itself, is fake.
Has a bunch of assumptions.
It is actually a fake origin to propagate nullification of individuality.
I mean, just because that's where it came from doesn't mean that it's should apply today. There's all kinds of stuff you can trace back and go, yeah, well, that's how it used to be, but I don't want anything to do with that now.
The inception of the story, if this is how it used to be, within itself carries the requirement for you not to have your sovereignty. It is ingrained into our psyche from deep misinformation. And so the only way we can perceive belonging to a tribe is within itself with the concept. The second we adapt the concept of belonging to a tribe, with it, like what we don't realize is like, it's like, oh, it's just this innocent concept, right? And it's like a little dot. But what you don't realize is it's an infinite zoom of 20 pages of legal text, everything else you're adopting subconsciously, unidentifiably to yourself, when the second you perceive that thought or that idea. Like, it is actually a mechanism to drive you away from sovereignty and into compliance. And then giving up of sovereignty, giving up of individuality.
Yeah, it can be. You can be a member of a tribe that way, or you can be a member of a tribe that still has your own views that may go against the tribe. These days, at least.
I'm not saying what you can be. I'm saying at the core, when we join a club without awareness of what it means.
There you go. Without awareness of it.
If we do not realize what is that the set of definitions that go along with joining the club, if we don't see through that, which I don't think people do.
No, I mean, you just look at the news and there will be examples of people in, how can I say this without being obvious what I'm talking about? In a political group, and the people in certain political groups tend to just all think alike. This is a sweeping generalization, but this person on their own, would they still have these opinions? I don't know. I don't think everybody would, but I think if you get swept up in the tribe, you just go, okay, well, everybody else seems to think that, that whatever, this is true, whatever. So I'm just gonna double down and say that and go with that.
Well, I will give you an innocent example that comes up right now, right? And I told you the story that I saw some story on Instagram. This is how I get all of my awesome spiritual stories. But the stories are not spiritual. Of course, I then adapt them into spiritual interpretations. But there was an orchestra concert somewhere in England. I don't know where it was. This was like years ago. So maybe it said it was before email. So I don't know when email was invented, but before email. So let's say early 90s, maybe late 80s, right? And
in the olden days.
Yeah, sure, in the olden days. And the concert played, and at the end of the concert, right, when the music ceased, when all the players ceased, there was a voice. I'm somehow I imagine it from coming from the balcony. Maybe they said it was from the balcony that said, "Wow," right? And it was a boy's voice, a young boy's voice that said, "Wow." I mean, this is a story on Instagram. And the director of the orchestra was just a shock.
Conductor?
Yeah, I don't remember if he was the conductor or the director of the orchestra. I don't know if that is the same position or not. But everybody was just shocked because this is not something that you do at the end of an orchestra performance. Right? You just sit there quietly clap, and that is the extent of your acknowledgement, right? And so the director says that it was such a shocking behavior And it just resonated so well with him because I was outside of the norm of what was expected when you go to an orchestra, that he decided that he was going to seek out this boy, and basically build it into a story, right? And so he said that at the time, this was pre-email, he had to handwrite, or let's say type out a letter to everybody who he could reach out, who he knew attended the orchestra that day, and ask if they knew who this was. And through all of these letters, he actually reached the patron, who was actually a patron of the orchestra. So I'm assuming he was registered and subscribed and all that. And so he had an autistic, nonverbal grandson that day he brought to the orchestra. And that was him. So the expression of the wow was him. And so, there's a whole TV piece that was done about it whenever this was. And then there's actually a book written about it. It's called The Boy Who Said Wow. And so this is a whole thing, right? But I thought the director was inspired by the idea that this went outside the norm. And I will point out the reason why it went outside the norm, because the boy was on an autistic scale, right?
Right.
So he did not have the cognitive recognition that he needs to function in some stuffed up in your ass British way where no one expresses themselves. And all you do, and this is, I will say this, is do the pretend clap with the face. I cross my eyes. The eyes would not be crossed in that position. But the idiotic behavior, right? So the idiotic behavior that is in fact not what everyone wants to do. Chances are, whenever I hear whenever I go to any kind of performance, if I'm moved by them, unfortunately, the audience knows, right?
Yeah.
And my children have pointed out my inappropriate behavior based on the norms of how much I laugh and how much I clap and how much I express myself verbally.
Because other kids have told them, "Oh, your mom laughs a lot. She has a weird laugh."
Oh, it was your mom.
Oh, that was your mom. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was multiple times that has been said.
That was noticed. Let's just say.
So at the end of, when the performance happens and the laugh needs to come in, the norm is you expressing your being. And if something that you watch on the stage, such as musical performance or theatrical performance or whatever it is, moves you, there's this energy. What the boy felt is innate energy of the cumulative expression of the orchestra. And then that energy registered with him in such an enticing way that even though he was autistic and nonverbal, he felt the need to express this in this one word of wow, right? How beautiful is that? How many people do you think in that stuffy ass British audience felt that way, but did not express their sovereign being, their individuality, because it was not the norm?
Right.
Because patron of the orchestra does not go and clap in the weird way and has a face expression outside of them and is not stuffy.
Right. And they were just horrified that someone would do it. I'm
yes,
sure.
Everything.
Horrified.
I'm sure the audience was horrified. I'm hoping most of them were not, but chances are they were. And the director said it made such a huge impact on everyone in the orchestra pit, or not the pit, I guess if it's an orchestra performance, they're usually not in the pit. So on the stage, that the performers themselves felt great about hearing this expression of amazement in this case from an innocent child who, at the time they did not, was autistic and nonverbal, right? So we have limited, in this case, our expression of the world and our interpretation of the world in every way imaginable. In this case, not allowing the performance to hear our own excitement and enthusiasm about what we feel like they did, whether it's a cello or a violin, right? They don't expect anybody to scream out and yell, wow, right? And then the audience themselves that feels the music cannot go and scream out a wow or do a weird clap or do a weird laugh like on my end, because that's taboo by the norms of what it is to go to a musical performance. And only when you're special needs, autistic and nonverbal, because the norm does not enter into its definition,
it gets almost, forgiven in that sense because, oh, well, they're different.
well, the time it wasn't forgiven because nobody knew that he was autistic and
but
nonverbal.
in this story, you're like, oh, and they're like, oh, well, it's okay because that's how I imagine a lot of people would hear the story. And then once you explain it,
Yeah, but then
okay.
it's forgiven as an excuse of why this is outside the norm.
Yeah, because they're allowed to be outside the norm.
Yeah, well, because they're special needs, and then therefore they don't know any better. But the orchestra patron who is not clapping and who's, has the stuffy face and is not allowing his energy to flow through an individuality to express to another being, a cellist who put his heart into it. Like the cellist's heart sings the song, right? And then the receiver receives this energy. And there's an exchange. It's an energetic exchange we're supposed to feel. And you're supposed to express yourself equivalent to it. And we shut off the expression because that is outside the norm. So I want to point out, this is a simple story, but this story is the epitome of why we as humanity, belonging to the norm, have shut off our interpretation of individualistic expression of our world, and then thus meeting the world with fullness of our being. And we shut off because this fullness, we believe, will not be accepted and it will be rejected and it will be outside the norm. And then thus, we will not be the good. And then we will be shunned from the orchestra tribe. And then, that's the weird person.
How do you reconcile the, I'm moved by this part of the performance with like, and I want to, clap and applaud and shout out with, but it's still going on. And if everybody was doing that, nobody would be able to hear anything. It would be like disruptive.
I mean, if it's still going on,
Right. Is that, I get, maybe that's just common courtesy.
Yeah, no, I mean, in a comic performance, right? Whenever we go to the comic performances, there are these comic pauses.
Yeah, and everybody laughs.
I tend to, unnorm myself from that. Right. And then, this is not a pompous thing, but with me, I usually register things slightly earlier. And so half of the time, the reason why I stand out is because I'm the first person to laugh.
I do get some sort of ego boost about being early to laugh as well. I know I do.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's an ego boost, but the reason why you stand out outside the norm.
I know that I'm not saying you do. I say I do.
No, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. But to some extent, I would almost feel weird if I receive it and it clicks and I'm early to laugh, and I would suppress it because, I'm not joining the crowd. I'm leading the crowd, and that's abnormal. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you would just, there's somebody I'm sure who registers it before me, but because the norm is, you're not the first one to laugh.
You wait and you join the laughter.
You join the laughter. And then you hold yourself back. You hold your expression. That expression of that laughter, the expression of that clap is a wave. It's like this energetic wave that just takes over you. And like literally, with me, my squeal comes out in the most natural way. So yeah, in the musical performance, I'm allowing the energy to flow and I'm overwhelmed, and it usually results in the tears for me if it's, some kind of moving piece. But at the end, of course, I will scream my heart out and shout and clap as much as I can out of the common courtesy. Yeah. Now, I'm questioning, is it the way that should be done? The orchestra usually pauses in between different pieces and the audience gets to react to each piece. So I think that's great. We don't sit through 15 minutes of orchestra and then we react.
Yeah.
You get these energetic exchanges all throughout. So, it builds up, right? And then let's be honest, the music itself usually works in this spiral to where it's a build, and then it kind of is a release. Every piece is written that way. So you're almost like energetically driven into the expression. And so right there as the orchestra stops and it's a release, right? And the energy just basically plows into you. That is when you're, of course, at the top.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. But that's an example of just an innocent norm. An
Mhm.
innocent norm where we, through fear of not belonging and through fear of not fitting in, actually limit our expression, individualized expression of the world. And thus, if the goal is to awaken, if the goal is to receive gnosis or to enlighten or to simply just find yourself, right? Like that's all it is just finding yourself and be okay with yourself. None of group norm breeding facilitates that through definition, by definition.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it within itself, it almost instills you don't do things outside the norm.
Yeah. Of course, the smallest tribe is the tribe of two, such as a marriage or relationship or partnership or something, and that can happen there as well. I mean, that's a interesting example because it can go, I guess, at least two different ways. It can go where, like how ours started, where I really suppressed a lot in order to try to fit in with my idea of what you wanted, or it can go, the other way where two people can uplift each other and challenge each other and enrich each other.
Yeah, like lose yourself to the idea of me, or just to idea of what a husband's supposed to be. Those are
I
two
guess you
different
could do it.
things.
You could do it either way. Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, some people might lose themselves to the idea of the norm of what they think the husband is ought to be.
Yeah. Oh, I'm the husband. I have to go work. I have to make more money than her. I have to, you know, do these manly things because that's what husbands do. It's like, but at the same time, husbands don't clean and husbands don't cook. So some sort of gender role type thing,
Yeah.
or any type
I
of
mean, gender
di-
roles are by default. You're not belonging to any group, but you're trying to comply with the norm of your identity
yeah,
or your perceived identity, like what a husband is, what a male is.
yeah,
You know.
right. And it's like everybody, there are these traditional views about what a man should be or a husband should be, and these have evolved over time to be slightly less stereotypical than they were. I mean, you can imagine, if you look at any show either from the 50s or that portrays the 50s or 60s, just look at Mad Men. It's like, wow, none of that stuff would fly today.
Hope not.
You know, oh,
I mean, that's what
the
the
women,
whole.
their job is over in the what is it, this stenography pool, just typing. That's their job, just this administrative stuff, and the men are the ones who make the decisions, and therefore make all the money. It's it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, but the only thing I can say out of that time is how many women felt like, oh, this is just the way it is, and this is what the world is, and I can't say anything. I can't really do anything. I obviously do not want to be grabbed in the ass, whenever I'm typing out a memo.
Don't thought all women want that,
Right, but it's like, well, if I want to have a job, then guess what?
right?
Right. And so like through these like ingrained sexual misconducts in this case, right? Um but then fear of standing up or fear for the norm. This is the norm, right? I
Yeah,
can't stand up against the norm.
right.
You give up your sovereignty. And in this case, it is extremely harmful because this is detrimental in even like a mentally harmful way, more
Sure,
so than just like not clapping
absolutely.
to your psyche, to your self-esteem, right? But that's an extreme case of it, right? Women not being able to voice their opinion about having men in authority grab their ass as 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 not a normal norm, in this case, is hurting your sovereignty in a detrimental way to where you don't feel like you have a voice. You don't feel like you're a human being. You don't feel like you can express yourself.
Yes.
And so how can you find yourself if you can't even express yourself to self-defend yourself? Right?
Yeah.
That's an extreme way of belonging to the norm. Right. I mean, just, this is the example of the Me Too movement, right? Just the idea that, I'm not sure if it's still, I'm sure it's still going on. It's just nobody cares talking about it anymore. But, the women in Hollywood who had to perform sexual favors for Weinsteins of the world or whatever their last name is, right? Like, oh, that's just the norm. Like, if you want to
everybody knows that's just what you do.
if you want to get ahead in Hollywood, you gotta.
All these people have done it, and they've been successful. So if you want to be successful, that's just wild. That is just
No, but
it is insane that it went there and it stayed there for so long.
I'm sure it's still there.
I mean, I'm sure it is.
I hope not. I hope the new generation was going to go.
And less.
Wait, what? In order for me to have a job, I have to do what?
Right. It's I mean, it's and historically, it's white men at the top of this pyramid. Whether it's against women, whether it's against African Americans, whether whoever it is, it's all. It seems to, at least in recent history, it's the white men doing it to everybody else.
Well, one, the norm of what patriarchy means in our society, right, has basically run its course far and wide, right? Suppression of the feminine, right? And then patriarchy, dominance being the norm, has infiltrated itself in all these ways and all these nuances.
But that was the tribe. Oh, you're a man, you're in the patriarchy tribe. And guess what? It's got a lot of benefits. You get to call her sugar tits and grab her ass, and they have to ride in the back of the bus and all, whatever. That was it. And I imagine for a lot of people that, why do I want this to change? Because this is great for me.
Yeah.
And that combined with they happen to be in power, well, that's not a recipe for change, especially if the people being oppressed don't express it.
Yeah. No, but right, the people who don't express it, and most of the time, what in Earth's drama, I guess, right? If we're kind of going back to that conversation, feel powerless to change.
Right.
This is not my sovereignty. This is not what I want to do. But through the fear of suppression to belong to the tribe, in this case, to have a job and be able to pay bills and have food on the table for my children, this is what I have to put up with.
Right.
Right. And the put up with, just let's be honest, is what I want to, again, circle back to is it is giving up of you knowing your being and in fact suppressing your sovereignty and your individuality away from knowing, from enlightenment, from expression of you as a human.
And that's so ingrained that the people who broke that norm went down as heroes, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, these people who are like, this is not okay. And we're going to, make it known and we're going to take a stand. That's, on one hand, that's what everybody should do. But nobody was doing it because it's scary. There are real consequences to that, especially
you don't step away
then,
from the norm.
Right? I mean, he's literally shot to death for it.
Yeah.
But those are the, they literally went down as heroes for it.
Yeah, but let's be honest. That's like the people who are being recognized as heroes for it is far and few in the comparison to
of course
who were shot and murdered and you never heard from again.
Right, but that's what makes them heroes is that they bothered to stand up and make a public stand about it.
Yeah.
Because it's so
Yeah, but what I'm saying
not
is
normal.
there are more people who stood up who were just killed right away, and it never
Oh, yeah,
made it
okay.
into the
Yes,
news.
yes, I'm sure,
Right?
I'm sure.
So the rhetoric that built in that
How
fear
many
of this
yeah.
norm and this norm and this
How
norm.
many women said, "Hey, stop it," and
Yeah.
then they're not there next week because they got
Yeah.
fired.
Yeah. Yeah. The story I heard about my grandfather, so on my mom's side, her mom's dad is that so he was alive in so she was born in 1926, my grandma was. And so he was alive through the turn of the century from the 1800s or the 1890s to the 1900s. And at the time, I guess, I'm assuming this is Bolshevik Revolution. I don't know when Bolshevik Revolution is. I'm not that great on, Soviet history. But, suppression regime, if somebody says something, guess what? They'll disappear and then never be heard from again. And I heard this is the same side of the stories on my dad's side. And, his side was Jewish, but at the time they were hiding the Jewishness of it. But same thing. Like, you just don't say things against the government.
We heard this similar thing from a Chinese friend that when the revolution happened in China, it was like, oh, people just disappeared because they either said something or even worse because the neighbors didn't like them or something.
Well, yeah. So the neighbors, basically, the neighbors will snitch because the whole propaganda of this is like 1910s, 1915s. I'm assuming Soviet Union. Isn't the Soviet Union 1910s, 1915s, or is it still? I don't know. Maybe I should know this. Right. So the propaganda is you just don't say anything negative against the government, any branch of government or anything. You don't speak up. But then the neighbors are supposed to be the watchdogs. Like, oh, you're supposed to snitch on everyone around you. And my grandfather ended up, he was drunk too. Not grandfather, grandfather. End up saying something to someone. But the truth was there was some jealousy involved. And the neighbors are like, oh, look, what we can do. We can score some points with the government and take this guy out. And then like he wouldn't shut up. And so like I think instead of killing him, they like submitted him to the mental asylum as a crazy person because he's, like, oh, that's a very easy way. I don't know why they didn't just kill him. And so, yeah, he died there from whatever, he died from. But because, right, he was actively going outside and was not afraid, one, and then two, did not fear repercussion enough.
Well, alcohol loosens the lips and makes it and makes you liquid courage.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And so but right, that back then, right, think about it. This is 1910s, let's say. That is what going outside the norms looks like, right? This is the norm of political regime, political suppression.
Wait, he had her in 1926?
She was born in 1926. Yeah.
Oh, so then it probably happened after that.
Yeah, it happened after that at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea when it actually happened. She doesn't remember him much. So she was there. So he was there.
So late 20s, early
maybe
30s,
20s. Yeah, I don't know what kind of political revolution was there then.
100 years ago.
World War I was, I don't know.
18 to 20 something, maybe?
I thought World War I was like 1912 or 1913. So wait. No, World War I. This is terrible that we don't remember this.
Like Jeopardy music.
1940. So World War I is 1914, 1918.
I got the 18 right. Just like that's the end of it. Not
Okay,
the of it.
so then this story about him is post World War I, but before World War II, because she doesn't.
That was in the 30s to 40s.
Yeah, it's in the 40s.
When was
She doesn't remember. She was born in 26. So this would Bolshevik Revolution is 1917. Wait, 1917 to 1923. Yeah. So this would fit.
So it's in the middle of World War I.
At the tail end, because it ends in 18. Yeah. So the Bolshevik Revolution then somehow is going on. And then during that time, she's born in the 26.
Gosh, so the Tsar is in there for, I guess, all of World War I.
In Russia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's, just over 100 years ago. There's a czar.
Yeah. No,
It's not that long.
So wait, my grandmother's mother, I think I've said this on the podcast before, worked for, at the time they were called pawn. And it's basically like it was a title like of a duke but he was given land by the royalty, I guess. And then he managed this land and she worked for him and whatnot. But yeah, so, and then this would be her husband, right? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, this would have been her husband. So they have my grandma. She was the last child of the bunch in the 26. And then, he's gone somewhere in the late 20s, early 30s, I guess. I mean, I'm sure my dad and mom would clarify this. But yeah, I mean, but that's going outside the norm, right? Like political regimes, right? How do you topple down a political regime? You can. So you live in this suppressed state of being. And these micro norms, micro groups, right? In this case, it is a countrywide group, right? But then there's micro groups within them. Each one of them, existence of each one of them, either it's good or bad, like a quilting shop, right? I know I'm picking on quilting shop for some reason right now, but like a quilting club, right? Oh, well,
what's wrong with that?
Right. I don't actually know if there's anything wrong with most quilting clubs, but you don't bring in radical ideas to quilting. Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to try a new knot.
Oh, no, you're sewing.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe you bring in an AI machine, right? And the AI sews the quilt for you.
It's a quilting robot.
Radical.
Hey guys, look at my quilting robot.
Right? Like that would be radical, right? You would probably be disowned from the quilting club if you brought in AI sewing machine.
Can you imagine the first person who brought like a Kindle to like a book club?
Yeah.
Be like, what is wrong with you? It's got to be printed on dead trees or it doesn't count.
Right. Right, but do you see? I mean, it would not be far fetched for you to go, okay, would I bring an AI sewing machine in and have the sew entire quilts for me into the quilting club?
Right. I mean, it almost feels like that defeats the purpose of the quilting club.
I mean, you still pick the fabrics and you still
program the design, I guess.
And then I don't know. I mean, of course, this is a far reach scenario. Maybe there's already AI machines in quilting clubs. I'm not familiar.
Sounds like you should join a quilting club.
Yeah, Annabelle and I were talking about quilting because I bought batting for my Fox project. And she's like, well, do you know how to quilt? And I'm like, I mean, it's just sewing, but specific patterns, right? But no, I don't, I mean, I can sew squares and rectangles and diamond shapes and whatever, but I don't have a desire to sew a whole bunch of pieces of different fabrics into a pattern. Like it seems something that one sheet of.
There's a simpler way to do it. Buy the fabric. Ta-da!
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just you buy one piece of fabric and then you have a blanket. You don't need to sew from little pieces. But that is just. But that maybe that's the 40-year-old me, and come 70-year-old me, I'm all into quilting.
Without all our cats. We're in a rocking chair in the front porch, yelling at these people to get off of our lawn.
Yeah. I mean, all the cats.
All the cats.
There's a funny, maybe you can put it up. There's a thing on Instagram that I saw. It was like, how many cats should you have based on your month of birth? And like, I don't know, like January, I think I had 1.
May was, I think, 13.
May 13. And September, which is what my date of birth is, all the cats.
All the cats.
It was like the only month that had all the cats.
All the cats.
And I'm literally like a crazy cat lady and have always been.
We got this one right here.
So I don't know what it is with September people and all the cats, but it is totally applicable. I have no idea how this thing is just. There must be some sort of pattern with Virgos and cats. All the cats. We have a cat sleeping over there, so it's irresistible. But yeah, no, anyway, right? There you go. The cat versus dogs, right? That's a simple example.
I'm a cat person. I'm a dog guy.
Right?
I don't get cats.
No, and so the idea of the norm, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's almost this weird, okay, camaraderie, I get that. That's fine. But the camaraderie turns into just craziness when it's like, unable to accept an opinion that is different from theirs. Like, I support the where we live, there's you watch out for the
Yeah.
there's U of L Cardinals for Louisville, and there's the UK Kentucky Wildcats, and we're kind of in the middle of it. Half the people are Cardinals, half the people are Wildcats, and maybe you went to the college, maybe this, maybe that, but people get fanatical about their sports teams, and it's like to the point of a bar fight or something
Yeah, I'm sure there's been
about
buffer.
the silliest things, which when it boils down to it are just opinions, right? I like this college, I like that college, I like cats, I like dogs, I like Ford, I like Chevy, whatever. It's they become these echo chambers. These
Yeah.
clubs or tribes or whatever become echo chambers that just reinforce whatever that belief happens to be.
Yeah.
And it's not that the belief is necessarily right or wrong. It probably isn't right or wrong. And in the end, they're all just opinions.
Yeah. But because it is a club and because it's an echo chamber, because it is a set of circumstances that you have come to believe, like in this case, it's useless thing of like, oh, I'm University of Louisville fan, right? It's completely useless. You don't even know what that means, right?
Right.
Like,
I want this team to play a better ball game instead of that team because
no, but right, all of it is completely unnecessary. But the only thing that you can actually pinpoint that it does is it propagates radical belief that take you further away from your own awareness and acceptance
Yeah.
of your own self.
Yeah.
And then thus by default of everybody else.
Right. I think
the more time you spend not accepting your own being and hiding behind factors of what defines you, right? Accepting self is not having the slew of definitions or the slew of collabs that you belong to, that is your identity. That is hiding behind a construct. So when you start to belong to these clubs and you identify yourself as a mother or as a teacher or as a quilter or as a U of L fan or as a proud NRA owner or whatever, whatever that means. What you decide is you decide to place these labels upon your being, and you choosing to lose your own personal definition, your own personal sovereignty behind an artificial label that is provided to you by the group or the norm or the club.
Yeah. And you not only that, you feel this I guess obligation to defend it. And
you're
if you
defending
don't,
it because it's you.
Yeah, it becomes you. And so
you have to defend you.
Yeah.
You lost yourself in this you.
That's it. So you become almost radicalized into defending dogs.
Yeah.
At the expense of cats or at the expense of whatever the opposite is, or the expense of all the other teams or whatever. Because that has become you. And
you lost your sovereignty.
Not only that, but if any other of your tribe or teammates or whatever see you defending it, they will rally behind you just to support it and inflame it even more, right?
Yeah, because they also lost their sovereignty in this definition.
Right. It then turns into this, a mob, some sort of groupthink situation.
But I want to say, from the origin of human generations, of human condition, we have been bred into this as the number one faulty switch that we turn on in order to give up the individualized knowing of our being. We hide behind labels, and then we get radical when those labels get questioned.
Yeah. As long as you're around, if you're a U of L fan, as long as you're around a bunch of U of L fans, everything's fine. You're not being triggered. But as soon as you meet someone who isn't, now there's this contention. At least if they're vocal about it. And
there's contention within U of L. Like, sure. Billy Bob is the best football player. Oh no, it's Billy Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And and so then
sure.
you micromanage your
right. You think, oh, we're all Christians, so we all get along. Well, oh no, you're Catholic and you're Methodist, you're Baptist, and yeah.
Yeah.
They just subdivide and subdivide and subdivide down to
It will
tiny groups,
the lack
factions.
Yeah, like wasn't that what Nazis were called? Faction?
I don't know.
Here we are talking about Nazis now.
What is that, Godwin's law? That any type of argument will inevitably end up with a reference to Hitler.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I wonder why. I wonder because like radicalism is epitified in that, right?
Right.
Hiding behind a label.
Like, what's the biggest, example that you can come up with? Hitler.
But yeah, like because it is a representation of radicalism and loss of sovereignty in every way possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you need to pick an extreme example, that's an extreme example.
Yeah. The question here's maybe like the transition is, do we need to continue to experience these extreme examples and being lost in sovereignty and actually not see through our own faults of adaptations and following the norms and not speaking against the norms and wanting to be in the norm? Like, I think, we started this conversation inadvertently with me saying that I have never been able to adapt to the norm, for better or worse, but now I realize it was never meant to be. And so awareness cannot be reached if you're lost to the subconscious fractalization of your being, right? If your being is fractalized behind untruth, behind a story that is in no way you, right? Let's be honest. Like, yes, you could be a passionate quilter, but that is not you, right?
Right.
You can be a passionate cat lover, but that is not you. The definition of you does not rest in these norms, in these clubs, in these possessions.
Yes. I mean, that's a very important, I think, milestone in people's development, is to realize that these attributes, these are attributes about yourself, characteristics. I am a father. I like, computers. I do this, but I am not this.
But most people don't see past that filter. Like, there's this divide, this norm, these clubs, they need to belong within themselves, built this wall.
It builds a definition. It builds an artificial definition of
builds this
you.
wall where you almost can't pass into discovery of anything, any truth, any identity, any personal sovereignty, until you actualize what is it that you're actually losing to your set of circumstance that define you.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. I know we mentioned it before, that scene from Anger Management where Jack Nicholson, the actor, not the golfer. Jack Nicholson is the Anger Management dude, and Adam Sandler's in there, and he's like, "Oh, whatever his name is, Adam, will you introduce yourself?" And he's like, "Hey, my name's, Adam Smith." He's like, No, that's your, no, he's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, my name's Adam Smith." No, that's your name. Who are you? He's like, "Well, I'm a teacher." And no, that's your job. Who are you? Well, I like playing sports. No, that's what you like. Who are you? And of course, Adam Sandler's getting angrier and angrier at the inability to answer what sounds like an easy question, but that may be one of the hardest questions of all. Who are you? Because you just want to, the obvious thing to do, the easy thing to do, is to take all these attributes. Well, I like cats, and I'm a cat guy, and I'm a dog guy, and I support U of L, and I, quilts, and I, whatever. It's basically, I'm in the following clubs. I'm in the following tribes.
Yeah. That's all
Here's
it
my
is.
attributes. And, I'm with this team and this team and this team and this team. And I'm this little, Venn diagram of
Clusterfuck
cat
shit.
people who like U of L, who drive this car, who whatever.
It's a
That's me.
clusterfuck of shit.
That's me.
You have taken
Yeah.
shit and you have went, oh, I'm not shit. I'm all these normal things.
Yes. Because these are normal clubs.
But the truth is, that is the shit that you're hiding behind. I will point out, I'm not saying that you should not quilt and you should not like U of L and you should not like cats or you should not like dogs and you should not, I don't know, whatever. That's
Right.
whatever. But what I'm saying is, the society hides behind them. You hiding your own being,
Right.
your own pieces of
Right.
fuming shit behind that. And as long as you identify as that, you're not identifying or trying to see yourself for who you actually are.
Right.
You're distracting your being.
Sovereign being inside of this meat sack of a body.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does it mean?
Having a human experience.
Yeah, but what does it mean? What does it mean to have a human experience? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's different for everybody. Is it different for everybody? Everybody has a different human experience, but what does it mean?
Or what is the definition of that human experience?
I don't know. I don't know. It's deep.
No, I mean, I don't think it's that deep. It is just the definition of a human experience is to find yourself, gnosis, right? To find your being, to know your being in the interpretive expression of your choices. And being a cat lover is a choice, right? It is something that you get to experience the world through, right? It's a lens that you get to see the world through. That is not me. I love cats. I apparently should have all of them. I think at some point I will. But
all the cats.
Right? But that is not in any way a form of my identity, right? I am not lost to the idea that I'm a cat person and I have X number of cats, right?
Right. Maybe that's it. Getting lost into getting wrapped up that you get lost in the idea of whatever definition or attribute or tribe that you're a part of becomes you, or maybe you become it.
Yeah. There you go. Whenever somebody dives into a creative project, right? And you're just want to be consumed in it, right? And you're just feel the flow, right? That flow is the essence of you, the essence of human experience coming through you, through your being. And then you get to express your individuality, your sovereign nature through this greater whole that is the outflow of pure love. I know I'm getting esoteric here, but the outflow of your soul into this world. And you can have an amazing experience in expressing yourself towards betterment of cats or towards grooming them or towards feeding them or towards loving on them without trying to torture them too much, right? So all these aspects is you flowing. But the second you start to take this flow and bring it down into the density that is the identity, that is radical nature of this interpretation as you, right? You can almost feel flow going down into a definition. The second you define it, you lost your sovereignty to that concept.
Yeah.
You lost your sovereignty to this idea.
It almost condenses or collapses.
It's collapsing.
Yeah.
Into a cat.
Into this.
A cat in a box.
Huh.
Yeah. Right. And so from that point, you are not an expression of your sovereign being. You're a subject to the condition that you have chosen to be lost in. And the norm, right? If we had to take all of these groups and all of these structures, whether it be as large as a Bolshevik party or a communist party or a political party or a quilting club or, a sports club
or a country
or a country
or a planet even.
or a planet, the second you take that and you adapt it, you can feel it into the depth of your being, right? And where you feel like, at times, um, um, I will, I could say this in different ways, but I will say it in my personal example, but it extends to all example. When I was in Ukraine, right? And this was so before 92, before the Soviet Union fell apart, uh, I guess if you could call it indoctrination of the younger generation into the communist way of being. But I didn't see it at the time as indoctrination into the communist way of being. I saw it as like teaching the belonging into the oneness, the group of oneness, right? So I actually saw it from the positive standpoint, and I think that was the goal. But of course, it had some negative aspects into it. But this indoctrination into a way of functioning went into us singing songs, us, performing community services under the name of communist party or school volunteer group. And then what it was building was this human being, right? Me as a human being who is part of the whole, right? And part of the whole, but a part of this group. And you feel the camaraderie, the intense camaraderie with everybody who's part of the Soviet Union, right?
Right.
And it felt, as a child, you're very intuitive. I was very intuitive. So when you sing the song and when you volunteer and when you become one of these members of the group, and then at the time, I remember one of the first ceremonies I went to was in elementary school. In the younger years, you become, I don't remember what the name of it, but you get a pin. And at the time, I'm trying to think. Wait, when did they stop believing in Lenin, like post Soviet Union? Like was
Lenin?
Lenin? Yeah, was Lenin like the poster child for Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I think on this pin it's like a little red star, and then in the center is the picture, like a embossed, what is it? It's called bust of Lenin, like like
he's
slightly.
got that very distinguished face too.
Yeah, and so
right?
it's like the first indoctrination into the club of Soviet Union or communism, whatever you want to call it, was the ceremony where you, as let's say first grader, got presented with this pen, and it was pinned onto you, and you became the member of a club. So the indoctrination in this
ceremony,
case
yeah.
starts early, right?
A whole ritual.
Yeah, it was a ritual. And you feel this belonging with this greater whole, and you feel like you're entering into this concept, right? And you feel yourself belong in the country, and you feel yourself like, oh, I want to say it's called, I don't know, maybe Arlyonak, but I have a speech impediment in Russian, so I cannot say the R. So anyone speaking Russian.
You're in the speech impediment club too.
Yeah, there's a speech impediment club, which was not a great club to be in. Yeah, and so that
so many jokes
about my speech impediment.
No, about a speech impediment club.
What's the joke?
I don't know. There's a joke. Could you all agree on how to pronounce it? There's a whole kinds of jokes. Sorry.
You never had a speech impediment, so you don't know how much it fucking sucks ass.
No, I can imagine it would be incredibly rough. At the same time, I can imagine it would build a camaraderie between the people in there.
There's no camaraderie.
I guess everybody.
I was the only person in school that had a speech impediment.
Oh,
yeah.
Club of one.
Yeah, it was a club of one. I mean, hence, right?
Oh, I thought there was. I thought like you meant that there was literally a group of people who would meet and
try to cure the speech impediment.
I don't know.
I mean, this is a side story, but yes, there was a group of people who were branded as retards, but based on their speech impediment, and then you had to go to speech therapy in order to beat it out of you. And because my school only had one retard, who was me, I had to walk 15 minutes after school to a different school that had several retards. And so there were 5 of those, and they would start their speech impediment training beat out of you class right after school. But because it took me 15 minutes to get there, I would like come in 15 minutes late. And the whole thing was 30 minutes. So my effort into curing my speech impediment.
You got half as much as everybody else.
Yeah. So I got half as much because I was the only retard in my school. And then at the end, this was a semester of school or a year of school. I don't remember what it was. The teacher declared me uncurable.
Uncurable.
And everybody else was cured.
Imagine a big stamp.
No, she literally said, nothing I'm able to do in order to fix your speech impediment because it is not a positioning, right? Like if somebody in the United States, this is equivalent to somebody in the United States having the L, like both Aiden and Annabelle had to take speech classes in preschool in order to help them pronounce the words better. I'm assuming because they I'm blaming myself on this, because they grew up in household where I speak things with an accent and they just pick up my accent. And I'm assuming you probably have an accent of some sort. Some people have said it.
People tell me I have an accent, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I have an accent, which nobody in my family even knows about, but they just assume that this is how things are pronounced. And so therefore, when they go to preschool, and now it's their first way of pronouncing things based on solely hearing your parents pronounce it.
Yeah, because like they didn't interact with a lot of other kids before that.
Yeah. So let's say they're 3 or 4 years old.
It's you, me, and this is even pre-YouTube. So it's you, me, and whatever's on TV.
And grandma and grandpa who took care of them, who only speak, well, I mean, they primarily speak Russian, but then
but
very
the
heavy
English
accent.
is very heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. So with them, your speech impediment came from just learning English through an accent speaking individual,
right?
Who's me.
They probably heard more accented English than they did if you would call mine non-accented.
Yeah.
But I'm sure
knowing you give up your sovereignty to me so much, then you probably don't even have proper American ways of functioning at this point. You've been converted to Jewish communism, Nazi propaganda. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the United States, I remember Annabelle was having a hard time pronouncing L's somehow. That was one of the things, because the speech impediment would give us, the speech teacher would give us like a report. The L's were there, and there was the other thing that they had a hard time pronouncing. I don't know. So they spent like each week, they would spend time concentrating on specific pronunciation of specific letter combos. And I think L's were one of them. So in my speech impediment, the R, is a thing. But it can be cured just with you learning to pronounce. Like when I first moved to the United States, I couldn't pronounce because there's not a combo of a TH in Russian.
Yeah.
And so with me, it would come out as the, right? The, right? Is that still wrong? I still don't know what's right.
Your the sounds. Sometimes you don't, because there's no W.
Oh yeah, I still cannot
do
W's and V's.
It turns into a V.
Yeah, I cannot.
Sometimes.
That's the only.
There's a handful of Russian or Slavic singers, and when they sing in English, sometimes the W's turn into V's, or a TH doesn't come through.
I remember TH was really hard. Ladder, I don't know why ladder. Double D's were hard. I just pronounced in that double D, right? Anyway, so the side story finished. She declares me incurable because it is not a matter of switching my palate positioning or tongue positioning. She basically says I have a deformed mouth. I don't know what to do with that.
Now you're in that club.
Right.
Deformed club.
I actually do not know anybody else who has a deformed mouth.
There's that singer who has the same. I can't. I don't know. I can't tell.
I found 2 singers who have the same affliction.
Are they also Ukrainian?
Ukrainian or Russian, I don't know.
Did they also grow up around Chernobyl?
Really?
Another club.
Wait, no, I had my speech impediment before Chernobyl.
Oh, okay.
I don't think this is radiation caused. Yeah, anyway, so...
got you thinking, though.
Yeah, well, no, I had to be... because I would have been 5, and we learned to speak at 3. And at 6, I started school, and I already had it. So this is not a radiation-caused
Okay.
affliction. Yeah, no, I don't know. So right now, I think the country is a little bit more accepting regarding this particular speech impediment, and some kids just are okay with it. I'm like, this is not something that needs to be beaten out and cured out of you.
Right.
Well, back then in the 80s, that is something that needs to be beaten out and cured out of you.
Yeah.
I was very radically approached of like, oh yeah, this is not, Soviet communist nation is not going to have people with speech
We're
impediment.
full of perfect people.
Maybe I was never said that, but that is something that it was in some form implied that this is not normal and it's not going to get you far.
I mean, is it Russia or is it North Korea that they have 0 gay people there because
I think it was Russia, but I don't know about North Korea.
I guess there's the idea that that's not acceptable, so we have 0 of them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's still the case or
I don't know.
Yeah, but no, right. In that case, maybe with me, the idea of belonging to the norm was just such a hard thing to overcome, such a hard thing. Right, where it's almost like maybe this is my affliction at the time, but maybe it turned out to be an extremely positive thing. Is I could never fit into any club or any norm or any form of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And so through their multiple attempts of failures, you just realize that, there's that, I think greater guidance from the divine probably went, slap, there's no definition in which you'll be able to fit in. And no matter how much I tried, it never worked.
Did you just feel like a weirdo?
No. Maybe. I don't know. What does that mean? Did you feel,
I don't know.
felt like a weirdo?
I felt like a weirdo, but
like, what does that mean?
Right. I don't know, but like now you've just replaced a label with another label. Now you're in the weirdo group. So,
but I didn't have a weirdo group. There's no groups of weirdos.
Yeah, they're not big groups. But I'm trying to think. There were other weirdos in school, but I wasn't friends with them. So,
you see, in Ukraine, when I went to school, there were not clubs. There were not. There were clubs. There were like there's a piano club and a dance club and all that, but there were not cliques.
Cliques, yeah.
I did not experience that as a cognitive upbringing
until here.
Until United States, United States epitomized
super cliquey.
It
from elementary school, from kindergarten.
Yeah, which is I mean, there were kids that you just simply did not like and didn't hang with, but there were, at least in my mindset, there were not a set of definitions where you place like, oh, those are the cool kids and I don't belong there. And then therefore I'm the weird one because I'm by default not with them.
Oh, what was it?
Like Aiden sometimes says things like that. And I'm like, that is such a strange affliction.
No, I mean, I felt that too. Like, oh, those are the cool kids. They're cooler than me. So, they're like, out of my league or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think
it
breeds in this lack of individuality, of acceptance of self.
I think it's different for boys and girls. I think girls get that clickiness earlier.
Yeah.
And boys
with Annabelle,
boys later. There was a teacher who said, by third grade, the girls are well established in the cliques, but the boys are like, what? You like trucks? Let's be best friends. And that's all it takes for, stereotyping.
Well, no,
for the boys to be.
She said girls are that way in kindergarten.
Yeah. But in like third grade, boys are like, you like trucks too? Yeah, we're good friends. And that's it. It's like they can find the most trivial things and then they're friends over just anything. Like a boy can be a friend with any other boy. Obviously not. That is not universally true, but.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to draw conspiracy theories, but this is not far off. That is just the pattern of indoctrination in losing sovereignty, right? You can like trucks, right? And you can be friends with this group, but the second your mindset goes into like, oh, look, I belong and I am good because I have a group of people that fit in my
I guess I took it more
psyche.
I know exactly what you're saying. I took it differently as in any two boys can find some common ground to be friends with, whereas the girls end up grouping themselves together into cliques several years earlier. In high school, everything's clicked up, but that was how I took what that teacher said that one time. Not, oh, now this is the truck group, but more like, hey, my name's Billy. Oh, my name's Bobby. Yeah, I like the color blue. Oh yeah, I like red. I like trucks. I like trucks too. Okay, we found some common thing. Now we're friends. But it doesn't, the relationship isn't defined by trucks. They just happen to find something and now they're friends. And trucks have gone by the wayside.
Yeah, but now that they're friends, because their friendship started out of trucks, you, to some extent, similar to you and me, lose sovereignty to that other person because the inception of your relationship.
Now, if you ever don't like trucks, you certainly can't mention that.
Right. Or if this person likes trucks, but then they also like blue and you like green, can you say that you like green and go against them? Are they going to be your friend? Because all of a sudden the trucks are still a common ground, but the color is not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
right. So the sovereignty gets lost in that I am lost to the idea of this being and then not wanting not to belong to that clique.
I know from personal experience, it can be difficult to express an opinion that you're afraid that other people might not share.
Yeah, because
you're going to be kicked out, or you're going to lose your place, or,
Well, in your case, right, going back to your pain body, you will be unloved.
Yeah.
And not belong.
Yeah. Nobody loves someone who doesn't like dogs or whatever.
Right. But that is because at the core, you have a hard time holding your identity as your sovereign truth. And then basically, at the age of 4 or 5 or 6, it is really hard for you to go, oh yeah, screw this. It's okay that they like green and I like blue. And I'm going to, I'm just going to have this as my truth. And that's okay. And I'm not afraid of giving up my sovereignty of liking this color.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fall into the masses and lose myself to the fact that I like this color.
Right.
Because you're afraid of not belonging. In this case, it is something as simpler and as trivial as liking a specific color.
Right.
I mean, we could relate to that because that's what happens with Annabelle every year. Right. Our daughter goes to school, and then her favorite color for the most part is like mauve pink, not like that muted pink, right? And she has had that as her favorite color, I think, for quite a while. But now, because she's conscious of belonging, she's conscious of wanting to be accepted and want to have friends, because then she feels good about herself. Come start of school, and if the teacher's favorite color is sage green, which apparently is everybody's favorite color right now, she will lose herself to the sage green.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we need to redecorate all her room, and we need to buy her all the new accessories, and her school supplies now need to be sage green. And she's very into design. So she loses her identity to this club. Like, she subconsciously thinks that if she has things of all the right colors that everybody else likes, and she brings them to school and she absorbs herself into their being, that she will somehow belong and fit in better, and then thus be a better person. And in this case, at the expense of actually her reality, that is like, oh, I actually like pink. And pink is my favorite color. And that is actually the truth. I like sage green, and I can have sage green items, but she gets lost in the switch of color.
Yeah. Right. I don't think my favorite color is blue and has been blue forever. I have never had a favorite color that is not blue.
Yeah, but in this day and age, Annabelle is an example of how easy it is to give up your sovereignty.
Her favorite color has changed over time, which is, I always thought,
as a reflection of a teacher.
I guess I didn't realize that. I took her at face value when she said her favorite color was sage green. I just assumed that was true.
It is true, right? You can like and dive into sage green because it's the latest fad.
I can enjoy some green, but if at any point in my life, if you said, "Hey, Elliot, what is your favorite color?" the answer would be blue. That doesn't mean I want everything to be blue. I'd say that's sitting in a bluish room on bluish chairs. But this is green. I just everything doesn't have to be your favorite
You're
color.
wearing blue.
I am wearing blue. But my favorite color does not mean the color I want everything to be. Those are two different things to me.
Well, she's a girl and she's into design and she's into aesthetics.
Mhm.
And the norm, the TikTok of the day norm is like, oh, everything has to have an aesthetic. That's like a whole thing. Or say this in the sword. It has to be perfect. If you're not following Mr. Buttersworth, you should. And so then by default, you get lost into like, oh, look, everybody likes.
Right. And you can go, oh, hey, that looks good. I enjoy that too. But that's different from, oh, that looks good. That is now my favorite color.
What
is it really your favorite? Because your favorite color is like almost like a fundamental thing that I don't believe really changes much over time. Has your favorite color changed?
Mm-hmm. To different shades.
To different shades, sure. But it's not like it was purple and now it's green. It's not like, it inches around in the hues.
Yeah.
But it doesn't move around the color wheel to the other side.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody's bona fide favorite color has wildly changed over time.
I don't know. I mean, maybe if you go through some sort of like crazy phase where like your old self dies.
Maybe.
And then like your
new
self
self. I wonder if Eckhart Tolle's favorite color changed.
Yeah, I mean, he basically died and rebirthed and maybe, is now maybe different plane of existence.
If that color meant something and then the new color, I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, anyway. So yeah. So right, I guess we'll wrap it up, but the idea of the norm for most part is that you get lost to the marrying of your sovereignty away. And then I actually think it's on purpose. It is designed to keep us further away from our own selves. And we use this as a tool to just get further and further away from accepting our own being, accepting our own sovereignty. And almost like through malicious intent, this concept, this very simple rudimentary concept of the clubs or belonging or structure or, just experiencing reality, we dive into the nuance and we get lost.
Right.
And that the losing is of self. We get lost of self.
I mean, and it's being in the clubs is basically unavoidable. You're born into a family. There's your first club. And there's a lot of indoctrination going on in that family because everything mom and dad says is just 100% accepted as the absolute fundamental truth for at least the first few years.
Yeah.
Mom and dad say, life is great, then you just grow up believing life is great. Mom and dad say, we don't like those people, then you just grow up a racist.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in your case, it's just more fucked up than that. It's because their saying actually caused you to completely disown yourself in every single metric.
Yes.
Mentally, emotionally, physically. Like all sovereignty was lost. And then you lost yourself so much that you didn't even know what it meant to have sovereignty.
Yes.
Like, this is not a dissing session on your family, but like through the indoctrination into narcissism of your upbringing, I think you just basically lost all points of definition and then even lost the idea that there's such thing as a point of definition.
Yes. No, I think that is 100% true.
So you're kind of like climbing out of like below the cave. You're not even in the cave. You're like in the caves below the cave. And you can't even enter into the cave because you have to first figure out like, wait, where am I?
You have a speech impediment. I have a identity impediment. to
the idea
overcome.
that there is even an identity to be had.
Right. This at a fundamental level, it was
right. With me, like I can define my identity by the wrong standards of being the retard who has a speech impediment.
Yeah.
But in your case, you don't even know that there's such thing as an identity.
That's the thing. It's extra insidious. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So but that is the malicious intent. I mean, I will say this: I'm not blaming your parents, and I'm not blaming, the Communist Party of Soviet Union, but that is the choice that we come into this world, that we will establish as our baseline of how lost we will be in order to know how far up we're going to have to climb from our hole of poop in order to actually even actualize that we have somehow lost ourselves, right? So it is a journey of self, but the journey of self has to be identified as, what am I doing right now that is taking me away from just knowing me? Like just knowing who I am and being okay with it. And in fact, embracing everything that is me, truly me, not embracing my skill set as a quilter, and not embracing as my skill set as a speech impediment in Russian. Just embracing this as a truth and being okay with it, and in fact thriving from that environment. Shut up.
Wow.
You scared the cat.
Oh no.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Right. And so that's it. Like you have to actualize yourself that from that far down. And then, my goal, I will finish this. My goal is not to take all these clubs and go, don't join any clubs. Do not belong to anything. Do not associate yourself with any. That is not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
If you are doing them, identify within you which part of self are you coming to join this club with. Do you identify yourself as a quilter and you're married to a quilter, and everybody else who's a crocheter is an asshole and you hate those people? Or this is just a way that your soul gets to express creative interpretation of a reality that is Earth, with color, with patterns, with
textures and fabrics
and whatever, right? And that is just an expression of your being, but in no way are you seeking identity.
I mean, that's a great example, because to me, quilting and crocheting are the same thing. I know they're not, only because recently Annabelle has tried to explain, what's one versus the other. But if I saw someone doing that, I couldn't tell you if that's quilting or crocheting. I don't know.
What?
Crochet has one and quilting has two?
No, knitting. Knitting is two, knitting. Crocheting is one.
Okay.
Quilting is just sewing.
Okay. Well, okay. Knitting versus crochet. See, I don't even know. Yeah. I am so unknowledgeable in this field of fabrics that I can't tell you what's what. But I am sure that there are people who are diehard knitters who really hate the crocheters, and diehard crocheters who really hate the knitters. I'm sure those people exist.
That would be strange. I was comparing knitting to crocheting because those two are, like sewing versus, hooks.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, technically, knitters and crocheters would sometimes use the same, yarn or.
Yeah, but something that But at the same time, there's people who are like,
computers. In UK.
There you go. People who are like, computer's a computer. It's like, no, I got a Mac. No, I got a PC. Or Ford versus Chevy. It's like, I don't know. It's a truck. I don't care.
Yeah, but think about that. The Mac versus PC commercial skids back with whatever those two people were. It was the epitome of building club and making one club the right club and the other club the idiot club. The entire marketing campaign of Apple at the time was to take the world and divide it into the smart people and then the idiots.
Right, and you sure want to be on the smart team, don't you? So come to our side.
Right? It is total manipulation. And I mean, that is what marketing is.
Yeah.
Most of the time is manipulating you, and you're like, do you want to be the guy who has eczema and rashes all over their hands? Well, obviously not, because that's not normal.
So
that's not cool.
Take placebo.
Yeah, take whatever, right? Everything in the world that is marketing, I will say this.
As a marketer.
Well, no, we don't do this. We don't.
No.
I have, I have to some extent wrote text in the websites that differentiate us as better than them. But in imagery, right, and then the perception thereof, right, when you were building one brand higher, I usually reserve away from
negatively calling out the other brand.
Yeah. Like competitive aggression is just not the way I want to promote a product.
Right. That comes out especially in, I guess any election, even local elections. It's, gosh, they just turn so bitter.
Yeah, no, and it's difficult to draw this line between, well, yes, our product is actually vastly superior than their product, and so we want to communicate that, right?
Yeah.
And there is, there you go, just like there is, we have an electric car now, right? And so there's this vast hatred towards people who have electric cars. And possibly specifically Teslas. I did not know this was the case. But, there's a Florida man who spat on us because, possibly because we were driving a Tesla, possibly because we pulled some...
cut him off a little bit.
Cut him off, right? But then...
Florida man.
There's right. But it's ingrained into just this generalized behavior, and it's ingrained into marketing. It's ingrained into its norm for political advertising. It's ingrained into how do you position yourself as a better candidate, and how do you design your club to be the right club, and everybody else is the wrong club.
I get it. It's like, well, the other candidate believes in this and this and this, and I don't. So I believe in that and that and that. And if you believe in that and that and that along with me, come vote for me. I get that, in that you want to distinguish yourself from the other guy. But at the same time, that's different from, well, this guy believes in this, this, and this, and therefore he's an asshole.
Right.
That's different. There's that line of, here's what they believe, here's what I believe. Go vote for the person who most resonates with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what he believes, here's what I believe. He's just wrong. Fundamentally wrong, and he's an asshole, and he needs to go to jail or whatever. That's over the line.
Yeah. This is what I wanted to say yesterday that I couldn't remember.
And he's bad for the country, and he's bad for the district, and he's gonna, everyone's gonna be homeless and on drugs because of him. Whatever.
Yeah, the fear mongering. The word fear mongering is what it's called.
Fear mong. It's not mong. Fear mong. Fear mongering. Monging.
I don't know. Whatever that is that I can't remember.
If you had asked me before you said it, I could have 100% told you.
I know. I usually do this. I say it in the wrong way, and then nobody knows the right way.
Fearmonger. Mongering?
Right now, we're able to see into the vastness of this manipulation and loss of self in these concepts much more vividly than before, because the polarized nature, the charge behind this separation is becoming very vivid, right? So it's very easy for us to actually start seeing how lost you can become to any one concept, because the concepts are so charged.
Yeah. Which
is great. It's actually great.
I imagine if you were to turn on the news or go to any news website, all the top stories would be some form of us versus them. Whether that's the election, whether that's any of the wars going on, whether that's whatever, it's all,
us versus
them.
Yeah, and the message,
depending on the website you go to, you this will be us or that'll be us.
The message that I got, the latest channel message that I got, that I guess I don't know if I'm going to post it or not, just because it was not video recorded, audio recorded, is that it will continue to amplify so much, all to draw more and more attention to this divide, not among the population, but among yourself. Each one of those expansions of divide and of this vastly different interpretation of reality from an opposite party, or even from the party that you choose to see yourself as, will continue to amplify so much that you will be able to see through the nuance of what it actually means to belong to the norm. That is how we will come to reach the balance of ourselves and see ourselves for who we are. Is these offshoots will continue to grow. And then, yeah, I will not elaborate on that detail, but that is it will just, that is where Earth is going. Like, that is how you build balance, is by radicalizing the blindness. The blindness will become so,
it'll become so
radicalized,
unmissable,
and right, that it will be almost impossible for anyone. It will be impossible for anyone not to see through it eventually. And
I hope
until
so.
everybody will see through it, see through the radicalization and this, what it means to be a part of the club, what it means to belong to the norm, Earth will continue to amplify the interpretation of those details, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody can look at where the world is today and not come to the conclusion that it is vastly more radicalized and polarized than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's not that one side is right and the other side is wrong. That isn't it. It's the fact that it's pulled apart and it's, you're wrong.
Yes. But that is the only thing that we're doing, is we're just radicalizing, and we're becoming obsessed or absorbed in its entity. Yeah. So I would caution, basically at the end, I would caution what it means to dive into the norm without awareness. That's what it is what does it mean to dive into the norm, and how much awareness are you bringing into this particular club, this particular association, and then how much of you is lost in that identity, versus are you diving into this norm as an expression of yourself? Like, yes, this norm happens to fit me and I'm in it because this is me, right? So always keep your sovereignty, always keep your identity, and go, yeah, this is still me. This is still a way forward.
Right. This resonates with me.
Yeah. And then thus, this is in no way hindering my expression of self. And I am in this open heart space, and I'm just simply exploring the world.
That's a good way to word it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.